Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome! Today we are going to take a look at all of the features and deliverables finishing work in November. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Your support is truly appreciated. So each month I like to put together videos that take a look at all of the work that is both kicking off each month as well as ending each month, just to keep us all more informed as to what is going on in the background. But before I get to it, just like with the previous videos, just because a deliverable on the progress tracker has work beginning or completing in a particular month does not mean it'll necessarily release that quarter, the next quarter, or even in that year, as there could still be more work required from other teams, like the downstream teams, people like audio or visual effects and so on. Or even priorities can shift and it can get pushed back until needed later on. It is, however, a good guide to see what could potentially come to the PU when, and at the very least, it does show us what work is scheduled to be done at what time of the year. So with that said, let us take a look at all of the features and deliverables that have work coming to an end in the month of November. So the first one that I would like to mention is Pyro Spacescaping. As we got to see during CitizenCon, Pyro is coming along very well, and recently we saw a new deliverable get added to the roadmap, which was the solar flare. The Pyro system, as we heard, will be quite a contrast to Stanton, which also includes its spacescaping, and with a sun that is dying, it will likely be one of the more interesting systems visually to be seen in the PU. Now I'm expecting the scenes to be pretty ominous and unsettling to capture the general feel of this lawless system, but at the same time I'm expecting it to be quite an awe-inspiring visual as well, and that first moment that we get to actually jump through to Pyro will be something quite momentous. Next up, we have two features that are pretty much both the same, but slightly different. We have Area 18 and Laureville's hospital staff outfits. Now, Area 18's hospital is slated to release in 3.16 for the end of the year, with Laureville's hospital Maria Pure of Hearts releasing in 3.17, so the first quarter patch of next year. Now, these two speak for themselves. They are designing the medical outfits that the doctors and nurses will be wearing when these two come along. And by the start of next year, that should be all of the main landing location hospitals done and complete for the PU. Following on from those two, we do have the Outlaw medical outfits, which will likely be used for Grim Hex, or the Grimp Clinic. Same concept applies, but expect it to be a little less clinical, so just make sure you have a bottle of Domestos at all times. Now, this next deliverable is one that was recently revealed and was mentioned in my work beginning video for October. It was the Gravlev physics rework. Now, the work on this only kicked off last month, as I say, and as we can see on the 3.16 release view, it is set to release next month, or this month. Now it's December because I'm late with this video. It will significantly rework the flight and driving model for all Gravlev vehicles, so think along the lines of the Dragonfly, the Nox, and then anything else like the X1 that comes later on. And it does sound like this was the result of an unexpected breakthrough, which we did read about in the last monthly report, and I'm hoping it will create more of a demand to take to using ground vehicles for mission designers, like maybe for the AI capable of patrolling maybe outside of 3.16's derelicts. Approaching on a ground vehicle might be a little more stealthier than flying in guns blazing. Regardless though, it is a much needed improvement that will be great when it comes, and I'm sure we will take to the dirt a lot more, and I'm really hoping for that Star Wars speeder feel. So sticking with features that are releasing in 3.16, we have the mining gadgets. This is just expanding on the already vast amount of options we have to mine with more hands-on options, requiring players to physically leave the ship, attach a mining gadget to a rock, tune the device to the frequency of that rock that you are trying to mine, and then bish bash bosh, easier, safer or quicker the rock is to get crunched. A nice new addition to an already impressive profession, just giving more choice and options on how you approach. Now, this next feature is probably my favourite one on the list. It is Persistent HABS, which will grant the player the ability to have their own persistent habitation room. So think along the lines of what we have now with the little apartments, but it is your own, it is yours, only you can access it, and it will allow you to go back to it whenever you want. You will be able to store your gear there, you can decorate it with all of the sub-flare or items that you find and the weapons that you find on your travels. It will be quite a big deal to have player homes persisting and really just creating a place to come back to and log off in. Maybe even a sense of belonging for any role players out there as well. For me personally, this is one of the bigger features, as A, it gives me a place to call home, and B, It'll just be paving the way to the bigger and better homes and apartments that we will be able to buy or rent, and also player-built housing and homesteads, one feature that I am really excited to see when it does arrive. I suspect it'll simply be just using the HABS that we see at the main landing zones now in the apartment blocks, but it will over time, as I say, expand to more impressive and unique apartments, houses, buildings, and so much more. Anyway, the work on these persistent HABs lasted only 4 weeks with the USPU team and begun back in early October and should have finished early November. It was also on the roadmap for 3.18, I think it was, but it was removed recently. So here's hoping that it does come back soon and we can start to properly call somewhere home. Next up, we have something called security behavior, which says this encompasses all the tasks for NPC security officer behaviors in the PU and Squadron 42. Now this will likely involve all the tasks that will enable the NPCs to react to any form of threat accordingly. Maybe also involve protecting other NPCs or players, like a police force for example. This could be one of the holdups for fully removing armistice zones, having a fully functioning security force patrolling streets, space stations, pretty much anywhere really, protecting the civilians and reacting to all the threats, and arresting maybe some pirates or criminals. The work on this kicked off around the end of March and is set to finish early November, so hopefully we will be seeing the benefit of this in-game soon, although it's probably best to get more of the desync reduced before they do come in, as it could cause more harm than good. So these next features are features that were finishing in a month earlier to November, but their work has been extended and continued through to November. Now, firstly, we have the fire hazard, which should have finished mid last month. The same goes for the animatable gunner helmet, that should have finished mid-November as well. AI landing improvements, AI navigation links, elevators and transit, and AI untrained combat all look to complete mid-November, with AI navigation links, ladders and ledge grab completing a little earlier in the month. And finally, physical quantum travel movement shows that the work on it was scheduled to complete earlier in the month of November as well. So a few of these things are taking a little longer than I think they expected. Hopefully they are all now complete, but of course I will keep you all up to date as each month transitions, and if any of these extend into December or next year, then I will let you know. So next up, we have an unannounced deliverable completing work in November. It is unannounced content, which has work scheduled from the EU landing zone team, the facial animation team, lighting and audio teams, location concept team, narrative team, USPU team, EU and US vehicle contents team, and visual effects team. So quite the undertaking, which was all to culminate mid to late November. What this is, I have absolutely no idea, but it does have many teams from many different disciplines working on it. So hopefully we will learn more about what this is soon, as the work here should have finished by now. Could it be something for the end of year patch, the 3.16 patch? Maybe, but it is quite a bit close to the cutoff and could be asking a little too much there. I'm sure we will hear about this soon enough, but it is something that they want to keep secret for the time being. Right, let's move on to tech-specific deliverables. I actually think most of, if not all of these deliverables I have mentioned in previous videos regarding their work finishing, so I'll only mention them briefly rather than delve into their ins and outs. First up, we have the ECUS improvements, which is the Entity Component Update Scheduler, which is the central manager responsible for maintaining all component updates and events. Now this, I think, what has been pushed further back, as it begun its work back in January and is now scheduled to finish at the end of last month, so that should be done now. FS Tech Anim Asset Integration is the next one, which says the game integration of .skin and .dna files with addition of level of detail optimization and fixes. Not entirely certain what this is. It is the tech animation team's deliverable, so I do wonder if it has anything to do with the new DNA head texture update coming in 3.16. Either way, the work came to an end on this earlier in November. Next, we have Maya Live Link, which I'm sure was originally scheduled to finish in a previous month to November, but should have come to an end towards the latter half of November. This is allowing Maya, which is one of the 3D animation modeling software that the developers, or some of the developers, use at CIG, and it links it directly to the engine, which gives much more of a what you see is what you get preview quality, meaning that workflow and productivity will increase. Next, we have the Shard Manager, which again, I'm sure I've mentioned this in a previous video. It began its work mid-July and finishes early November. The shard manager is responsible for creating a shard in the database, ensuring it is seeded with an initial population of entities, communicating with matchmaking so players can join a shard and talk to other services, so a hybrid and dedicated game server can be assigned to a shard. A very important system that will hopefully be finished by now, as I'm sure this deliverable has been extended a couple of times maybe. The Subsumption editor integration is next. This is to recreate the Subsumption editor's functionality inside the engine to allow easier setup and debugging Subsumption logic for the designers. So Subsumption is the AI system that drives the AI, so this will make it easier for the designers to program all the AI to do what they need it to. The work on this began way back in March and should have come to a close mid-November. Next we have the Viz Area Improvements. Now Viz Areas are parts of geometry that are not rendered in as they are hidden. For example, the inside of a ship does not need to be seen if no one is in that area of the ship, so it is culled out to help with performance. Now these improvements will support Viz Areas made out of multiple segments to allow developers to animate more complex shapes as well as reduce the designer's burden during level building. And this work should have finished just before the end of November as well. Finally, for tech, we have Atlas, which will split the game into multiple manageable regions known as territories that are then provided to the Replicant Functions dedicated game servers by the Replicant Hybrid to manage and simulate. Certainly sounds necessary for something like server meshing and all the work that is going on there. Anyway, the work on this Atlas was scheduled to complete at the beginning of November. So a lot of this work sounds like it's for this core back-end tech like server meshing, a big undertaking as we know, and I know a lot of it has been extended from month to month because clearly there's a lot to do. So fingers crossed they have all come to a close now, being December, and we will start to see this come to fruition throughout next year. So to finish with, we will take a look at some of the Squadron 42 specific deliverables that finished in November. First, we have Chapters 3 and Chapters 13, which is designing, implementing and iterating on each of these chapters of the Squadron 42's single-player campaign. So as always, with these chapters, great to see Squadron 42 progressing, and these chapters getting done. Both 13 and 3 completed their work in November, which is definitely good news. Next we have the female player head, which is completing a modelling and texture polish for the female player's head, after which it is then sent to Tech Animation for a rigging update. Now this work looked to have completed mid-November, so that should be good to go. And finally, the last feature for Squadron 42 is the character creator. This says developing the player character creator for Squadron 42's single player campaign. And again, the work on this finished early November, so again that should be done. So there you have it, quite a lot of work completing this month, a lot of tech work as well, which is always music to my ears, but personally for me, the fire hazard system is something that I'm really looking forward to. Any established security measures will be much appreciated, so restrictions can be lifted and NPCs can come to the aid of players when needed. But most importantly, the persistent HABs are what I'm most interested in, giving us a home as such to go back to store our items, display anything we find around the verse, which will be such an amazing addition to the game. So I'm glad that the work on that should be coming to a close, and hopefully we will get to see that added to the roadmap again, and maybe sometime in the next few months see it during a Inside Star Citizen show. Anyway, with that said, if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Also, you are all more than welcome to join me over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. If you are new to Star Citizen and have any questions, by all means ask me on stream. It is the best place to do so. Hit that thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.